Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for March 21st in the year of our Lord 2025. This is hour one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, to do so using the checks and balances brilliantly put in place by our founding fathers in the supreme law that I am, the Constitution for the United States of America. Those are the solutions at our fingertips right now, ladies and gentlemen, as we carry on their legacy. As you know, we reject revolution unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in, because we follow the Prince of Peace. I might recommend this to you this weekend. It's a freedom-loving, fantastic, faith-filled. We're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time. Friday, celebrated all weekend, would you please? A lot of people are celebrating March Madness. A lot of people are celebrating the greatest country ever known to man. A lot of people are concerned about the country and the direction we're taking. A lot of people are smoking opium. They think there's all kinds of solutions everywhere, and there's not, although there are good solutions. But you know what? Any effort to restore the republic without God, family, and country is just going to be a failure. So remember that, and remember who's warning you first. All right, we've got two guests for the show today, first hour. First one, obviously, is Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. Check out his weekly webinars, Q&As on the Constitution every Thursday. Sign up for that at freedomsrisingsun.com. You can also check out his award-winning collegiate series, To Preserve the Nation. It's a book and lecture series that's incredible for homeschoolers and for anybody who wants real study of our founding era documents and more. You can find that at freedomsrisingsun.com. To Preserve the Nation. freedomsrisingsun.com. Our second guest is a gentleman who many of you may not know. His name is Vem. That's right, V-E-M as in Mary or Mike. Vem Miller. He's a filmmaker. He's a vision guy. He's a journalist, and he runs a website called AmericaHappens.com. That's AmericaHappens.com. Now, I've known Vem for quite some time by inference. We run in a lot of the same circles as patriots, right? And I didn't know him, but I knew he was a good guy. He knew of me. I knew of him for quite some time. Well, then all of a sudden, people started calling me and they said, "Hey, man, do you hear what happened to Vem?" I'm like, "No, why? What's up?" "Well, Vem had a big old run-in with a sheriff." I'm like, "What the heck?" So I dig into it, start studying it, find out that it's Sheriff Chad Bianco of Riverside County, California. And over the years, we've had a little bit of blips with Chad. Sometimes he's favorable, sometimes he's not. They claim he's part of the CSPOA. What he'd claim, I don't know. They claim he was part of the Oath Keepers and he funded the Oath Keepers. And so on one hand, they give Chad the bad rap like they do all of us if you stand for freedom. On the other hand, we're like, wait a minute, something can't be right here because Chad, he's not perfect, but he's a decent guy, we think. And Vem's a great guy. We know. We've seen a lot of his work in filmmaking, and he's been at almost every, patriotic political event you can imagine. I mean, I've even been in events with him, and we're so busy we haven't had the chance to connect and hang out or anything like that. But we knew of each other. Okay, so you're going, what's going on with this? What? Well, then you start hearing things like, Chad is saying that Vem created the third assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And I'm thinking, I don't know Vem that well, but I can tell you this, the chance of that is zero. The guy's been in all kinds of patriot circles. He's ran for office. He's done it. I mean, something's wrong here. So we called Chad Bianco, and we emailed Chad Bianco, myself, along with former Sheriff Richard Mack. And we say, Chad, what the heck is going on? Chad basically says, the guy's a nutcase. He's whacked. He's crazy. I'm glad we stopped the third assassination attempt. We're like, what? Hold on a minute. We get a hold of Vem. Vem tells his side of the story, and it's not even close to Chad's side. I mean, it's more than, I don't know how you get more than 180 degrees from something, but there you go, right? And Vem's story seems logical. Chad's story seems strange. So you start to dig further, and Richard Mack says, you know what, I'd love to sit down with you, Chad, and Vem and see if we can't come to a solution or to an understanding here. Something just doesn't make sense. Chad says, no, we don't need you for anything, Sheriff. Forget it. There's nothing to talk about. This guy's a nutcase, and that's all there is to it. So then Richard Mack says, I'm going to bow out of this discussion then if you don't want to meet with me. But I, Sam Bushman, am a news guy, right? Broadcast journalist, whatever you want to call me. You know, they'll claim I don't have credentials. I claim I've been in the business longer than these clowns wanting credentials. So we digress, except to say I've been around forever in the news business. I'm not a right-wing fanatic. I roll right down constitutional lane. If it's the who, what, when, where, why of a story, that's what I'm into. Been doing it for decades, people. I have more credentials than almost anybody in the business these days. I digress. The goal isn't to focus on me. The goal is to say, so I bring this up to Chad, and Chad starts to dialogue with me. And the dialogue goes sideways in a hurry. So first thing out, I say, hey, you know, he's saying, Chad is saying, you're saying that there was an assassination attempt? He's like, I'm not saying that. I said, well, the news says you're saying that. Well, the news can say what they want. They're crazy, too. Okay, Chad, I've got a soundbite here of you saying the assassination attempt. And so I send Chad Bianco, the sheriff, this soundbite of him saying that. And I said, did you say this? I mean, they've either faked your voice with AI or you said this. Chad, which is it? And he comes back and he says, the media says what they want. You can think what you want. How come you're taking Vem's side? Wait a minute. I'm not taking anybody's side. Hold on now. Either there was an assassination attempt on the president of the United States or there was not, number one. And as far as I've been able to research, and I've done everything that I possibly can, talking to them, Chad, and everybody else under the sun, there was never, I'm going to say this several times, there was never any attempt by Vem Miller to threaten, much less assassinate anyone at any time, period, end of paragraph. And there's zero evidence to the contrary. And so I start digging in, and the more I dig in, the more convoluted the story gets. It is insanity. And so pretty soon, Chad's thinking I'm the enemy. He's like, yeah, you're just part of the right-wing, whacked-out mainstream or white right-wing extreme press. You're just covering for Vem. I'm like, Sheriff, I'm doing no such thing. I've been in the news business for a long time. To me, it's about who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay? That's the deal. That's what I want to know. So what charges does Vem have? And he rattles off a bunch of random stuff. So I call the courts, and I say, hey, are there any charges filed against Vem Miller? And the court says, no, there's no charges filed yet. This is real. I do this research, okay, folks? I don't just talk. I get it done. So then I basically go back to Chad, and I said, Chad, they say there's no charges filed. Chad's like, well, there will be. Well, wait a minute. You just told me there was already. I don't control the docket, or I don't control the courts. I just, okay, so what charges are we talking about? Well, he, had this fake driver's license and all these weird IDs, and he had all these guns in his car, and his car wasn't registered, and it was all crazy, and the guy's a lunatic. So I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Whoa. Did he have multiple IDs? Chad. And then Chad basically starts just saying, I'm not going to respond to you anymore. This is a waste of my time. Okay, we continue, and I continue to expose more of the scandal. And I get it all in email, too, folks. So, you know what? Don't subpoena me because you'll lose if you try that. Don't waste your time, Chad. Anyway, and so I dig into this thing, and finally there are charges. And the only charge is that he had a gun in his vehicle. And I'm going, okay, but we could debate if that's a crime. It's a misdemeanor at best in California. But then I start getting all the material evidence from Vem. Chad won't send me anything. Chad's just mum's the word, I'm not going to talk to you, and I won't come on your show. It's a waste of time now. Well, so I want to play for you this soundbite that I sent to Chad, because the big debate, Chad's mad because this thing went viral in a negative way for his, quote, future. We'll talk about that. So Sheriff Chad Bianco tells me he didn't say what I have an audio soundbite that he said. I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but that's just lying straight to my face. Here's the soundbite.
I am glad that we're not talking about this after we shot him. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt. He was a lunatic. It's people trying to do harm, and thank God we prevented it. And we know that we prevented something bad from happening, and it's irrelevant what that bad was going to be. I truly do believe that we prevented another assassination attempt.
Mr. Sheriff Chad Bianco, when you say something bad was going to happen, it's irrelevant what that bad thing might have been. That is blatantly, absolutely violation of oath, bogus. Okay? You're not the thought police, sir. And so let's discuss what happened. Vem Miller drove his own car from Nevada to California. When he got there, he rolled into the place where they're letting vehicles into the event, the rally for Donald Trump. And Vem pulls up and says, "Hey, guys, my name is Vem Miller, and I have some guns in my trunk. I just want you guys to know that. I'm not playing any games. I don't want any problems here. And I have credentials to be at this rally, but I'm just being completely transparent." So they kind of say, "Well, what? Pull over here." And so anyway, then Vem basically says, "Hey, would you guys like to keep my weapons while I go into the rally? Because I'm not trying to cause any... No, just go over here and shut up." And anyway, long story short, they basically take Vem. They don't really arrest him exactly, but they kind of harass him and then let him go. Well, then the FBI gets involved because Chad's saying it's an assassination attempt. The FBI looks at it and dismisses everything and says, "There's nothing here. It's a big old nothing burger." Chad continues this narrative that he stopped an assassination attempt. And so then he goes into all these weird things about IDs and all these weird things about licensing of vehicles and all these weird things about guns. And through, in my opinion, some very artful wordsmithing, he makes it sound like to the mainstream press all over the country that Vem Miller was going to assassinate the president and Chad stopped it. Absolute, complete lies. The FBI agrees. There's nothing there. Anyway, Chad continues to go on this bender and trash and attack Vem Miller. Now, here's my problem. If Chad had said, "Hey," right after it happened, "Vem, I'm so sorry. My deputies are on high alert because, hey, there's already been 2 attempts on the president's life, and we were being super vigilant, and we got this wrong. We're so sorry, Vem. We love you. We're so sorry for the mix-up." I would have total respect for the sheriff. I get that there is a hair's line with regards to, when you cross the line versus when you don't. And it's easy to criticize, but it's very bad if you get it wrong. So, you're going to err on the side of vigilance, and I get all that. I respect that. But when Chad continues to double down and triple down and literally lie to my face as an independent, very well-documented journalist, I sent that soundbite to Chad. Chad says he doesn't know where these assassination discussions came from. The answer is they came from his mouth, and I just played it for you. Okay? Chad is continuing this narrative, even though the FBI says it's not true. Chad then sicks the Vegas police on Vem's family. How that all happens, we don't even know yet because we haven't got to the bottom of the details. Well, then we start hearing all kinds of other issues about Chad Bianco, how he runs his jail. There's a whole plethora of people in California against the sheriff because of the sheriff has had to pay out big money to settle cases for wrongdoing on his watch. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm sorry for taking that big, long summary before we welcome Vem to the broadcast, but I really needed to kind of summarize how I got involved. And so I was saying at first for quite a while, "Hey, let's sit down and work this out, Chad. Let's get to the truth. There's got to be something that makes sense here." And the more I dig in, the more the sheriff lies, manipulates the truth, and then eventually covers up. So now the only charges against Vem was, "Oh, you had a gun in your car," like a misdemeanor. There's nothing about an assassination attempt. There's nothing about wrong. If you have multiple licenses and forged names and everything, and there would be some charges related to that. He's like, "Well, we'll leave that to the federal officials." Well, they've decided there's nothing there. Okay, well, what about his registration? Well, we'll leave that to the Nevada officials. Okay, they're not doing anything either. So the bottom line is everything Chad claimed was really part of this case turns out to be nothing. And the only thing left is this teeny misdemeanor about, "Oh, he had guns." Well, when Chad says, "I'm just grateful we didn't shoot him," this just shows how over the top a dishonest sheriff can be. Because what do you mean, shot him? This is the guy that came up in his car, completely transparently told you, hey, I've got some guns and here's what's going on. And he pulls over politely, doesn't even try to go into the rally, didn't try to sneak anything in, didn't do any of those things. How do we know? Because Vem Miller's a broadcast journalist as well, a filmmaker. And Vem took copious notes and video about what went down. And Vem then created a film about it so you guys can all know what's going on. You want to learn more about it? AmericaHappens.com. You can check out the film Vem. Welcome to Liberty Roundtable Live, sir. Is my summary right, or have I missed something?
No, you got it pretty good. Thanks, Sam, for having me on your show. I actually really appreciate the fact that you did all your research and kind of summed it up right there. It's a lot of people are still listening to what Chad says or trying to find holes in my story. I get constantly people that say, hey, what about the fake IDs? What about this? Because it's very hard to believe that something like this is possible, that somebody would lie to this degree and think that really he could fool the world, So it's because of people like you and radio shows, podcasts that we've even had a chance of getting the truth out there.
Now, what's fascinating is after all this kind of went down, the mainstream press did a big old bunch of stories with Chad about this thing. I mean, everybody talked about it, all the big media networks, every single one of them over the weekend right after it happened. The problem I have with all that narrative is I get the mainstream press being duped a little bit. When a sheriff comes to you as a news guy, oftentimes you don't vet much because you're like, this guy's a sheriff. He's on the up and up. And so, your guard kind of goes down. The problem that I have with it is after that fact, more and more evidence have come out, and the mainstream press hasn't updated any of their stories. They're leaving it on record that you committed the third assassination attempt against the president, and Chad's standing by that narrative, thus destroying your life, Vem. It's going to be almost impossible to get a job. It's going to be hard to, whenever you say, oh, Vem Miller, they're going to be like, whoa, this guy, right? And as a result of Sheriff Chad Bianco's claims and his lies, Vem and his family has continued to receive attacks on his good name, on his family, on everything else. It's going to be hard for you to live a normal life, Vem.
Yeah. I mean, as early as this weekend, so I went to Sacramento to a Republican event, CRA, I think, and even then, Chad was over there. The reason I went there is to pass out flyers for the documentary, The Third Assassin, which we have a 12-minute preview of out there, and to let people know that this guy's a bad guy, and he is a criminal, because what he did to me and my family was criminal, and yes, he destroyed my name, he destroyed my reputation, just so he could have more power, which is so inherently evil for a man that claims that is Christian to have such worship over worldly items, worldly power, that he's willing to destroy a family. He's willing to kill me, actually, because when he sent 12 armed anti-terrorism officers to my parents' home thinking that I lived there, because that's the address I have on file, due to my journalism work, I've had to conceal my actual address, so I had all my mail sent to my parents' home. Well, he sent them there with false information, saying that I was armed, I'm an assassin suspect, nearly 2 days after the FBI and the Secret Service clear me. And the intent there is really clear, where you send 12 anti-terrorism officers that are, heated. They think they're about to meet an assassin, and had I been there, I would have been dead. So this man, in my eyes, attempted to murder me beyond the character assassination that he did. So I went to Sacramento to a Republican event just to pass out flyers, and he was there. Sometimes we were literally standing a few feet away from one another, as he's, they're taking pictures with people that think he's a great guy or whatever, right? And I hear that he's telling the influencers that are there, and trying to convince them to support his campaign, he's telling them that he still believes, and I'm talking about to this day, that I was an assassin. He lied to a couple of people I know that then reported to me, saying that I had a loaded firearm underneath my car seat, when it's abundantly clear that the firearms were in the back of my SUV in the trunk area. And so, it's unbelievable that even until today, this man is being pushed for California governor. He's a leading Republican.
All right, so just so everybody understands then, so after this event, Chad announced that he's running for governor, the first Republican to step in saying, hey, Chad Bianco wants to leave the sheriff's office and run for governor of the state of California. Well, now it's interesting why he picked a Vem Patriot guy, where he could go against the Patriot, get the mainstream press support right before he launches his bid for the governorship. The problem that I have with that whole story is he miscalculated because he thought that he could just take down a patriot that could be painted as a nutcase. The problem is Vem has too much evidence to the contrary, too much evidence that releases the truth. He's got people like me that are independent journalists that say, I'm going to dig into this story and find out what the heck happened. And when Chad lies to my face in an email saying I didn't say that, and I'm like, well, here's the soundbite. What do you say? And he says the news media is nuts, and why are you taking Vem's side? I'm going, Sheriff. That's not law enforcement. That's not keeping your oath of office. And then I basically, double down and say, well, what about these facts in the case? And everything Chad responds back to me is manipulated and twisted. And, well, he's got charges filed, Sam. I checked. No, he doesn't. Well, they're going to be. Okay, well, that's not the same, Sheriff. Well, I don't control that. Well, I know. But don't run around on the public and say charges are filed when they're not. Now, what's the charges to this state then? What are the charges? Some misdemeanors?
So misdemeanors. So it started off with carrying 14 bullets in my gun instead of 10, which is apparently a high capacity magazine. And also they said that my mag was in the gun, which I guess in California it has to be separated. Since then they've dropped the 14 bullet high capacity mag charge because I guess there was something called Freedom Week where if you buy a grandfathered gun, then you could actually have 14 bullets or whatever. So I think they became nervous that was a weak charge. They changed it to 2 carrying a loaded firearm in public charges, right? The issue with that is, firstly, it was in the back of my trunk, and even on the sound of it, that sounds like I'm literally holding a gun in public, which was not the case, right? The second issue with that is they've already gone on record saying that my shotgun had no bullets in there. So one of the charges already goes away. The other charge is, extremely flimsy, especially when you consider what he did to my name and reputation. But what they're trying to do right now, and in our investigations, we realize why this exists, because corrupt people like Chad Bianco don't exist in a vacuum. He has a DA over there, DA Michael Hesterin, who's his close friend. And the more we've researched on the background of Riverside, we've seen multiple examples of DA Hesterin, instead of holding Chad Bianco accountable, actually covering up for him on multiple occasions. So they got a little cozy, little, almost like a mafia operation where they're covering for each other. And this is the reason why Chad Bianco's been able to get away with so many of his crimes. And I'm not the first one this happened to, by the way. There's other people that he defamed. He's lost $75 million worth of lawsuits because of his and his department's bad behavior. And we could get into examples of that because I do have now a web page, 2 web pages where we just keep exposing Chad Bianco. And my story is just one of many of him, basically being a criminal while running a sheriff's department.
Now, what's fascinating about this is Sheriff Chad Bianco won't really engage with me at all. But the mainstream press, if you type in Vem Miller, folks, on the internet, it doesn't look good. Vem looks like a very bad, evil person. Well, if the FBI has already cleared him, if the Nevada Police Department's not really doing anything, but they did send over the armed agents, the question becomes, did Chad call them directly? Does he work department to department across state lines like that, like he has a cozy relationship with the folks in Vegas? Or did the FBI get a hold of them? See, when everybody else drops it but Chad, and when we dig in more and more and more, and then you go, well, wait a minute, they're dropping charges. Now we're down to misdemeanors, and now they're dropping charges, and they released them virtually the same day, right? They released it the same day, right?
Yeah.
Well, how do you release an attempted assassin on the same day? Folks, it doesn't make any sense, is what I'm telling you. And now Chad wants to become governor. Just imagine the havoc that a guy like that can wreak if he reaches the governorship, huh? Scott Bradley with me. When we come back, I want Scott to chime in on this, too, because it might be a new story to the good doctor, but I'm sure he's got a couple of great questions for Vem. Then we'll get into those websites and some more of the details as well. And then finally, what's going to happen to Vem and what we can do to help him. There's a film out about all this, folks, so you can learn all the details and see all the evidence Vem has. AmericaHappens.com is where you can get that done. And then we also have a GoFundMe, ladies and gentlemen, that we really got to deal with, ladies and gentlemen. GiveSendGo.com/defeat Chad Bianco is where you get that done. Hang tight, more in seconds on your radio.
Proclaiming liberty across the land. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Global air travel snarled by the closure of London's usually busy Heathrow Airport. An electrical substation burst into flames, cutting airport power. Police do not suspect sabotage, but that's not helping people reach their destinations.
Emma Fulton was at the airport. She had to reschedule.
We had to go to the Air India desk, which was a bit chaotic, but we got there.
One flight left Charlotte, North Carolina for London.
We are headed back to Charlotte. Let me tell you what's going on.
The pilot explained the situation.
The runways have lights, but there's no power at all at the terminals, and they are not accepting flights into London Heathrow.
Aviation consultant John Strickland says it will take several days to recover and compared it to a contained version of the reaction to the 9/11 attacks when airspace was quickly closed. I'm Ed Donahue.
DOE Chief Elon Musk stops by the Pentagon today. Posting on X, Defense Secretary Hegseth says his meeting with Musk will focus on innovations, efficiencies, and smarter production. President Trump setting the wheels in motion to shut down the Department of Education.
In some ways, this is just a formality. The Trump administration has already started work to pare back the education department. It's been cutting grants and contracts. It's been suspending and firing employees and looking for ways that they say they can cut waste and woke spending.
Correspondent Colin Binkley says Congress must sign off on the president's plan to shutter the agency, returning its responsibilities to states and localities. The National Transportation Safety Board ordering inspections and assessments of dozens of bridges in 19 states. Comes in the aftermath of the collapse of Baltimore's Key Bridge after it was hit by a cargo vessel last year. Stocks deep in the red on Wall Street. The Dow down 411 points, while the Nasdaq is off 128. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Financing a home, especially in today's market, is one of the biggest decisions you'll make for your family. Work with a mortgage company that puts you first. I do. Work with a lender founded on biblical principles like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I do. It's Mike Gallagher for the only mortgage company I've used for almost a decade now when financing or refinancing Fellowship Home Loans. I'm friends with the owners, Mike and Brian. I even have them on my show occasionally. I know the care their team puts into every single customer. I can personally tell you that it's a smooth, stress-free process. And that's due to Fellowship's level of service and expertise that puts you in the right loan for your family and your goals. There's a reason Fellowship Home Loans is flooded with 5-star reviews. Whether purchasing a home or a cash-out refi to consolidate some higher interest debt, you can trust Fellowship Home Loans. Start the process. Make the call. 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, equalizing lender, NMLS number 819382.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Do you treasure your liberty? Well, at lovingliberty.net, we most certainly do. And we want to help protect your liberty too. Become part of the family. Everyone knows that the core of any society is the family. Therefore, the government should foster and protect the integrity of its family, we the people. Won't you join us as a Loving Liberty sponsor to help us promote the principles in the 5,000-year leap? Let's restore the miracle that changed the world at lovingliberty.net.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
You know, I must admit that until the last half hour of discussion between Sam and Vem, I was completely unaware of this fiasco that's going on, and I find it not only fascinating, but if this wasn't such a tragic and dangerous kind of unfolding of power and the destruction of character and everything like that through innuendo and accusation that is is just not being backed up, it'd almost be comedic. I mean, I think about this for a minute. I mean, there's so many cliches and angles that could be played on this to say this is kind of like, the 15 minutes of fame kind of thing that somebody's looking for. This is kind of like the idea that the leftists and the woke crowd oftentimes swats people. They call in a 911 call and the SWAT team responds. I mean, this stuff is becoming absolutely dangerous to the core. I think about some of the old stories that were out here not too distant past about corrupt sheriff's offices, and particularly in the L.A. area, where gang members have infiltrated that. I think about the 1946 Athens, Tennessee event where I don't know what you'd call them, the strong-arm political bodies were running the show. I mean, there's so many. Oh, think about Billy Jack, the 1971 kind of cult movie where the law was breaking the law, and Billy Jack made a comment, when the police break the law, there is no law. You think about, Bastiat, Frederick Bastiat, talking about having the gendarmes be the enforcers. He was French, so you think about police. Okay, gendarmes. The enforcers were on the side of the corruption. I mean, this is kind of, the whole thing is comedic in so many ways, but Vem's life, really could have literally been ended by some trigger-happy people, perhaps for somebody's political, aggrandizement to help them achieve something that they're looking for. I think that it seems to me like political officers need to be held responsible for corruption and for misstatements and for bringing things forth this isn't even a good faith, it doesn't seem to me like. And if you say, Sam, I don't remember the number, 78 million or something like that of lawsuits been brought against this guy, and he's lost.
Yeah, not that many lawsuits, that many dollars.
Oh, that many dollars.
That he's already lost. The county's already had to pay out that kind of money because of lawsuits already.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It seems like a mighty prime target to me. I mean, this is one of those things where if there's enough, shall we say, pain for the citizens of his community and their taxpayer dollars are being squandered on things like that, sooner or later the people are going to say, wait, we need to do something different here. We need to elect somebody else or something. And maybe Vem needs to run for governor in California to really make an issue of this. I don't know.
Anyway, it's interesting, and the way I look at this is we tried to sit down with Chad, and this is the reason that I'm speaking out on this. We are a sheriff's organization. I'm not speaking for the sheriff's organization right now. I'm speaking as an independent journalist, broadcast journalist, talk show host, commentator, whatever you want to call me. I'm doing this story under that banner, not under the CSPOA banner. Okay, and I'm telling you right now that I love great sheriffs that do what they're supposed to do and protect America and everything. But when this sheriff is blatantly lying, and it only took me a little bit of working back and forth with the sheriff to find out he's not being honest at all. So where's the court case, or where's your charges then? If they're misdemeanors and if they've dropped one of them, there's hardly anything even left, right?
Well, they haven't drawn. I mean, we haven't even gotten to a point of actually going through with that, because what Chad Bianco also keeps doing, and this is also happening in Las Vegas, is nobody's releasing the body cams. In Las Vegas, I've paid for the body cams for the last 5 months. They've been lying to us, making excuses. They will not release it, because what I've been told is that there's some nasty stuff in those body cams about causing this assassin harm, right? Which would then show conspiracy between two police departments having gone rogue.
Yeah, but don't they by law have to release this stuff?
Eventually, a judge will prompt them to release it, but right now they're not releasing it in the process of actually.
So the question is, will they doctor it before it gets released? The longer it takes, the more we kind of fear that, right?
Yeah, but if they doctor it, then all of a sudden, then our allegations become true, but according to the law. Because if they doctored it, they changed stuff, they covered up stuff, they lost stuff, then they lose all credibility. Exact same thing is happening with Riverside. They won't release the body cam. So we've gone to 2 pre-trial hearings where nothing's happened but a continuance, because we can't even get into discoveries because they won't release the body cams. Now the question becomes, why are they delaying this process? Well, DA Mike Hestrin, as I said, is a corrupt individual. Chad's running for office. If they release these body cams and they lose that one shred of those 2 nonsensical charges, then whereas now 98% I'm credible, he loses that 1 or 2% of like the charges, and that's not going to look good for his governor campaign. So in a way, and by the way, this is going on right now. If you don't mind, let me tell you about a tip we got yesterday, where he is actually using Riverside Sheriff's Department resources for his fundraiser tonight, right? So you see this issue of Chad Bianco literally using Riverside like his ATM, Riverside like his, tool of corruption, let's call it. And it's insane that like our federal authorities, the people that are supposed to hold these individuals in check, have yet done nothing. And we'll see what happens. I mean, eventually the judge is going to compel them to release the body cams. If they are not doctored, then pretty much they lose all credibility that they have. And I hope people take notice, because right now this man is polling at 12%. And in my viewpoint, and I think the evidence backs this up, not only should he not be running for governor, this is the person that belongs in jail.
So how long till your case then adjudicates and finalizes? Because if there's just misdemeanors, I mean, that's something where they just like hold a quick court thing and they're like, okay, you owe $500, or I don't know what I'm just saying, and then we're done, right? I mean, it's that simple on the face of it.
So imagine this, okay? This is a silly, nonsensical misdemeanor charge. Already, I guarantee you tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money have been wasted on helping Chad Bianco cover up his crimes. And then he will continue to, it's like his own ATM. This is something that shouldn't even waste taxpayer dollars. But we've gone to 2 hearings. That costs money. It costs money for the DAs to show up there. It costs money for the DAs to put these cases together, all wasted because Chad Bianco is literally using government resources to cover up his own crimes.
Doctor?
Again, this is all news to me, and it's fresh, and I'm looking up some things as we're going through this, and I mean, there's been some big profile things happen. He's been on Fox News. Conservative pastors have been around this program. The COVID-19 thing, he had some press on. But one of the things I've come across that's quite, it's a big disturbing kind of concern. In 2022, Riverside County jails registered 18 inmate deaths. Whoa, baby. How many times do you have people dying in your jail that there hasn't been some? I mean, maybe all of them were accidental, and maybe all of them were people that were brought in with, they were ready to die of COVID. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But the fact of the matter, how often do you have inmates dying like flies in a jail? So there's lawsuits over that.
That depends on if you're Chad or not.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe here's what there's a California Department of Justice is reviewing this, and here's a quotation. Perhaps they engaged in a pattern or practice of unconstitutional policing amid deeply concerning allegations relating to conditions of confinement in its jail facilities, excessive force, and other misconduct. I mean, that's an end of the quote. I mean, this is stuff the California Department of Justice is investigating. Now, he may say, oh, this is to keep me from becoming governor, whatever he's saying, but the fact of the matter is this is stuff that dates back years now. 3 years ago, they had 18 inmates die while incarcerated in their county jail. I cannot think of the last time somebody died in our county jail in my community. I mean, it's just astounding. So it sounds like, you know, there's some really potentially damning things that are going on there.
There are. Now, let's be clear. I started this out thinking there's got to be a way to find out what happened, to preserve the integrity of the sheriff, to get Vem, you know, some greater understanding maybe about what happened, or, you know, I started out thinking there was a way to resolve this, a way to peacefully, you know, make sense of it. The more I dug in, the more I found that Vem would cooperate on every question that I had. I said, hey, what about your different passports? His response, well, I'm a Canadian citizen and an American citizen, and I went and did some journalism stuff overseas, and so, yes, there are multiple, IDs and passports, but they're all linked together in an appropriate way. It reminds me on a mortgage application, okay? When you fill out a mortgage application and then they say, hey, Sam, before you sign this loan, we need you to sign this document to where every variation of, you know, your name is covered, okay? So Sam Bushman, Samuel Bushman, Sam J. Bushman, Samuel John Bushman, okay? And they have all these things, and then I write and I say, yeah, that's me, okay? This is nothing different. And Chad exploited that as if it was some kind of, hey, man, this guy's got fake IDs on the black market going on, and he's got the... And none of that has any factual evidence. And the proof is there's not any charges filed relating to that whatsoever. Right, ma'am?
Yeah, there's nothing, no. I mean, all of it's legitimate. It's stuff that the State Department knew about, that I use my two different passports depending on where I'm going to do investigative journalism, because there's some places where an American passport could get you killed and a Canadian passport is less offensive, and I've used that just to simply be safe.
But there's nothing illegal about any of that either, though. People need to understand. I mean, that happens all the time with different people, journalists. A lot of people have those kind of situations. And you have a last name because of your ancestral origins that is problematic in certain parts of the world, and that's why you've kind of used Miller too, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've used different last names especially when I've traveled to Eastern Turkey, which is known as historic Armenia. There was a genocide there of 1.5 million Armenians that were liquidated off that land. Until today, there's these KKK-like institutes, which I think it's almost sound Borat-like, but it's like the gray wolves against the Armenian genocide lies. This is literally a sign that you see outside these places, and their job is basically to kill Armenians that say that there was a genocide over there. It's been a massive cover-up since the start, and one of the realities you have to deal with if you're of Armenian descent.
But in my mind, if you're investigators and you're with the Sheriff's Department, though, for you to find out, hey, how many driver's licenses are in this guy's possession? Answer, 1. It's very easy to say, hey, is that legitimate? Trace that to a Social Security card, or trace that to several other databases, and quickly get to the bottom of that. And that's probably why the feds dropped it so quickly, because they dropped it even before the press conference of Chad Bianco, because they were able to basically connect those databases and say, hey, there's nothing here. This isn't right. This isn't true. So they've dropped it. Now the feds have been asked about this multiple times by other news organizations, and the feds say we're not saying anything. No comment.
Yeah, I have a feeling there. Yeah, I have a feeling there might be an investigation. I've learned that there's a Department of Justice investigation in California against Chad Bianco. The only conversation I ever had with the feds after this was them asking me questions about Chad Bianco. It was very obvious that they are investigating Chad Bianco as well. The one thing I don't understand, though, Sam, is that I'm an investigative journalist, and my circle and the people that I work with that are really good with digging up information. assassination. I've already dug up enough via my contacts to show that Chad Bianco is a dangerous individual. He's a person that has almost a sociopathic tendency to lie and think that because it came out of his mouth. There's an actual interview where he says, if it comes out of my mouth, you know it's the truth, right? So he truly believes that if he's saying something, it's truth, and how dare you dispute it? And I think you ran into that when you tried to question him, right? So
all I wanted to know is what the charges were and, where this case is at and what evidence there is. And, I was just basically trying to get the facts. I mean, look, if Vem Miller has fake IDs, there needs to be charges about that. You can't run around with fake IDs in America, people.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. I mean,
and
there
if
was
if Vem Miller, for example, made an assassination attempt on anyone, I want to know what evidence, who's, documenting and what actually took place. And there's no narrative. There's not even a discussion about or a timeline or a detailed anything about any of that. The only timeline we've got is the video that you already released, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, on that space alone, the two firearms I had, one was a shotgun, and I was never a gun expert prior to this, and I've learned a little bit since then. But so I had a shotgun and a Glock 19, neither of which could even, they're not assassination tools. That's a funny thing about all this. It's like the bullet wouldn't even reach, So, but the point I was trying to make earlier is we've uncovered piles and piles of evidence that clearly show this man is a danger and a criminal. And so, I guess justice moves slowly. I don't know what the FBI is doing, but there is already so much out there that shows that this guy's a menace. He needs to be removed
now that
from
Cash
office.
Patel's in charge and stuff like that, have you been able to open up any channels of communication there?
We're attempting. Yeah, we're attempting. Definitely. I think they're aware. Obviously, they have some really big fish to fry right now. So, we hope they get to it. Yeah.
Now, I look at this whole thing, too, and I don't know why the sheriff would climb up to me. I don't know why he would claim that I'm part of the Vem Miller team. I'm not part of anybody's team, ladies and gentlemen. I've always told you that, you know what? I want the truth. I want the facts. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Vem. And I've liked Chad before all this happened. And, I knew Chad wasn't perfect, but I also know from experience, you hear all kinds of negative things about all kinds of people. There's all kinds of negative, dishonest, wrongful stuff out there about me, too. So I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's why we reached out to Chad and said, hey, you know what? Give us the skinny on this thing. And Chad just literally turned against me and threw me under the bus going, hey, and I'm going, wait a minute. Why are you doing that? All I'm trying to do is say what charges are filed. He says, well, the charges are filed. Check the docket. I go to the docket. There's no charges filed. That's when I start getting suspicious. Then I say, well, what's the problem, about this assassination attempt? I mean, all we've got to do is document the detail. Where's the timeline? Where's the sworn testimony that, hey, Vem was doing this or that? Hey, he got out of his car with a, Glock in his hand and he went here and he did this. And, you've got to have that kind of detailed evidence. You've got to have witnesses and verification and sworn testimony and things. There's zero on any of that. So if I type in Vem Miller on Google right now, or any other search engine, it comes up and it's got about 20 stories that all are October 13th and 14th, right when all this happened, basically saying, hey, Sheriff Chad is saying that this guy, created the third assassination attempt and thank heavens they stopped it. Well, then I see an article or two later that says, hey, Vem is suing Chad and the, sheriff's office or sheriff's department down there, whatever you want to call it. But then I don't see anything else on the topic. And that's the other interesting question. Not counting the research that we're doing and the film Vem's doing and a few other constitutional patriots keeping this story alive, the mainstream press would just as soon bury it. And I'm wondering who got the memo on that Vem? Because that's another telltale sign that there's a problem here on Chad's side.
I mean, the mainstream media, I think, got exactly what they wanted on October 13 when he made, when he said all those lies, which was, MAGA lunatic, anti-government, gun guy. We all know they don't like our Second Amendment rights. And this is a guy pretending to be, he claims he's MAGA, but all his actions show that he basically feeds to the woke leftist crowd. So they got what they wanted. Also, I've made over 1,000 episodes of different kind of content that's highly offensive to the deep state and the corrupt individuals that are running this country. And so, including documentaries, one of which I released a month before called Bundy versus Deep State, about the Clive and Bundy ranch standoff, and dissecting really what happened there, which is the attacks on the American ranchers so they could remove all the ranchers and feed us bugs and whatever World Economic Forum agenda there is.
Yeah, and I'm very familiar with this case because we're dear friends with Bundy, and we helped out at the Bundy Ranch. We went to I didn't go to the Malheur Wildlife Refuge thing with Hammond. I chose not to do that, but we did stand trying to release the Hammonds from prison, and we did go up there and have a peaceful rally. And so I'm very, very familiar with that case. And again, it's another cover-up by the mainstream press, another cover-up by government. And you've exposed a lot of that on your America Happens website, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's do I think that potentially there's dark forces behind him that haven't revealed themselves? It's potentially possible because I do a lot of work that's offensive to corruption and corrupt officials, and it's ironic that the 50,000 individuals that went to that rally, they chose to pick on me and really tried to carpet bomb my life completely. So who knows who's behind him? It's clear that Chad's an absolute liar and shouldn't be in any position of power. But I do sense that there are others behind him that are pushing this along and also financing his campaign.
Do you have faith in the courts on this one? Do you think the courts are going to dismiss your charges or give you just a minor fine and you're done? Or how long can they drag this out? How long can they make this an issue? Because what they really want to do is try to drag it out after the 26th election and keep it in the spotlight as Vem's the bad guy and, hey, there's charges filed is what they want to claim, not digging into the details of those charges. So I offered to say to Chad, I said, hey, why don't you come on the radio, Mr. Bianco, and you can go ahead and explain the charges to everybody. Okay, because I want people to understand, what are they? Are they misdemeanors, felonies? What's the fine? What's the typical, hey, let's say he's found guilty. What's the reality? Is there jail time? Is there just a fine? What's all? I wanted the sheriff to break that down. And his response is, oh, you're just taking Vem's side. I'm not telling you anything. And my response is, wait a minute. I'm trying to let you as the sheriff tell everybody what the reality is of this situation. And he refused.
I mean, I would say that in terms of the misdemeanor charges, there hasn't been any case in the last 10 years where somebody's been put in jail for having a firearm in the back of their car. Obviously, they're going to try to persecute me as much as possible. And I'm referring to the DA Michael Hestron and Chad Bianco team right there. I don't know if they're going to be very successful in that. This thing's already so public. In terms of my faith in any America, I have zero faith in America right now. I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer, but we're just so inherently corrupt. The fact that somebody like Chad Bianco could do this sort of thing and commit crimes, it is a crime what he did to report false information. If you and I had done that, Sam, we'd be facing 5 to 8 years in jail just on that count alone. So I have zero faith in America. I think America
and the sad part is nobody's even digging into it from a credible point of view like I am, right? I mean, I know you and some of your friends are. Now, I'm not saying I'm not your friend. I'm just saying I'm doing it independently. I don't know how many of those there are, but I look at it and I go, I don't even see any real evidence to anything Chad's claiming at all.
Yeah.
Zero.
This is... it's sad because it's not our job to do the job of the FBI and Department of Justice. We shouldn't be more clever than the FBI and Department of Justice. I already have piles and piles of stuff that if the FBI or Department of Justice came, there should be handcuffs on Chad within 3 days. It's that crystal clear. But that just shows you how inherently corrupt our institutions are. And people like Chad are protected. While if you and I did the exact same thing, I mean, we'd be in jail. And that's sad. This is why, people ask, why are kids being sexualized? Why is, all this corruption happening? Well, we just have an inherently corrupt society in America. The promise of America, of our founders, is long gone. And, we have a very courageous president right now in Donald Trump that wants to bulldoze all that corruption. But, there's so many corrupt people out there, unfortunately.
Well, and I want to stick with the hope of America. I don't want to be smoking hopium and fool myself, but I do believe if we the people would turn back to God Almighty, turn back to God, family, and country, I do believe the supreme law of the land and strict adherence to its principles would be the answer. Turning to God and using the supreme law of the land, that would solve the problems. The problem is we're going in a lot of directions that aren't that. Vem, can you stay longer?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, stay there, Vem, and Dr. Scott Bradley. When we come back on the other side, I want to talk about the other side of the coin. In other words, I think Vem did some stuff that I would have never done. We'll talk about that with Vem, get his opinions and his takes on some of that too. Because I want to be fair on all sides of this discussion. I want to dig in and be as candid as we possibly can. So we'll do that and let Vem respond. He's willing. For some reason, the sheriff's not willing to do that. I offered to have him on with Vem or by himself, and he refused both offers. Very strange, wouldn't you say? All right, hang tight. God save our republic.